Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU Audiobooks. Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Continuing Education, Bachelor's Degree Program, Elective Course, Rural Development, BRDE-101 Rural Development, Indian Context, Block 3 Nature and Process of Development, Unit 1 Concept of Rural Development, Meaning, Nature and Scope of Rural Development. 1.0 Aims and Objectives. This unit aims at describing the conceptual foundations of rural development. After going through this unit, you will be able to explain the concept of rural development, describe the multidimensional, multifaceted and flexible nature of rural development, understand the objective of rural development, analyze the different areas of rural development and explore the areas that need immediate attention for equitable growth. 1.1 Introduction. Rural development has become a major issue for developing countries, firstly, because of their majority of population residing in rural areas in miserable condition. Secondly, rural areas have vast possibilities for growth, and thirdly, for growth of country it is essential to accelerate the development of rural areas. It is worth mentioning here that after the Second World War, the liberated countries of the Third World began to focus on the development of the rural areas. It is when the concept of rural development and rural reconstruction was emphasized. The various factors responsible for emphasis on rural development by developing countries are listed below. 1. The majority of population in these countries resides in rural areas in miserable conditions. 2. Rural areas were seen as potential centers for growth, and 3. For the overall growth of the economy. This unit is designed to outline the basic features of rural development, which is multidimensional, multifaceted and flexible in nature. This introductory unit attempts to explain different meanings, nature and scope of rural development. L.2 Background. The emergence of rural development as a distinct branch of knowledge is a result of non-feasibility of growth-centered traditional concept of development for rural areas. Growth itself does not ensure the prosperity and well-being of all sections of society because it only indicates the increase in the production. It does not explain the distributive pattern that shows the gains of growth and development to the different sections of population. The concept of distributive justice in this regard demands equality in opportunity that ensures the gains of growth to all sections of P0 population and imparts specific efforts for the section of society who are at the bottom and not able to receive the gains of growth independently in open competition. The rural-urban disparity and miserable living condition of rural areas are general features of most of the developing countries. The widespread poverty, low income, excess population, unemployment, poor health condition, low productivity, dependency of agriculture on rainfall, inequality and exploitation are major socio-economic problems of rural areas of most of development countries. It had been acknowledged in early 70s that these problems are mainly due to lack of proper infrastructure rather than mere economic backwardness. For example, proper financial institution, better irrigation facility, use of modern technology, use of hive seeds, appropriate disaster management facilities are undoubtedly required to increase agricultural production and to reduce the risk of flood, famine and drought. That ultimately improves the living condition of rural people. It may further be improved by expansion of transport facilities and communication facilities for rapid rural industrialization, adequate distribution and marketing system, rural township planning, expansion of school and medical health facilities, equitable distribution of land and other assets are also required to reduce the miserable living condition of rural population, particularly the rural poor. The failure and success stories of the efforts adopted by different developing countries for rural development shows that rural development as strategy needs systematic, integrated and composite efforts which have two aspects. One is increase in production and its proper distribution, and other is well-being of rural population, i.e. human development. 1.3 Meaning of rural development. Rural development may simply be defined as overall development of rural people and rural areas. You will find that there is no universally acceptable definition of rural development, and the term is used in different manner. For example, it is used as planning model or policy, as concept, as phenomenon, as strategy, and as discipline. As a planning model or policy, it is a conscious effort to achieve set of objectives that it has set for itself. It has two aspects: first, the identification of priorities, and second, development of mechanism to achieve it. This kind of notion is expressed in several drafts of Planning Commission of India. Harris considers rural development as a policy and process, which is specifically designed to the development of economy. He prefers to use rural economic development instead of agriculture development, as it is wider and cover other aspects like agro-industries, cottage industries, etc., which are vital for other types of development and well-being of population. In India, so the rural development was in early 50s considered as agrarian development because rural economy was at that time predominantly an agrarian economy, contributing 3/4 of the GDP of India. But very soon in 60s it was shifted to community development. As a process, rural development is an unending road. Taylor defines rural development as process of well-being of people. Rural development has been also defined as a process of developing and utilizing natural and human resources, technologies, infrastructural facilities, institutions and organization, and government policies and programs to encourage and speed up economic growth in rural areas. But he emphasizes the importance of economic growth for rural development. Kataring, 1986. As a phenomenon, it is natural growth, which is an outcome of interaction between various physical, technological, economic forces and socio-cultural institutions. It treats rural development as an evolutionary process. As a concept, it has vast canvas which covers all kinds of development of rural areas, ranging from agricultural and economic development to the complete upliftment of mankind. It acknowledges the fundamental difference in basic nature of economic activities of industries and agriculture, and the structural difference of rural and urban areas. The flexible nature of rural development gives it freedom to include the new dimension like human right, rural environment, self-reliance and self-sustenance. It evaluates the progress and analyzes the trends of rural development on the scale of universally accepted norms. As a discipline, rural development is a systematic study of well-being of rural population of the rural areas. It is multidisciplinary in nature. As a discipline, it studies the realities of rural areas. In the light of its history and regional variations, one all conclude that rural development is a solution for the betterment of rural areas in the light of current need and future demands. As a strategy, rural development focuses on the rural poor. World Bank sector paper entitled Rural Development points out that rural development is a strategy designed to improve the economic and social life of specific group of people, the rural poor. It involves extending the benefits of development to the poorest among those who seek livelihood in the rural areas. The growth includes small-scale farmers, tenants and the landless. Robert Chambers also defines rural development as a strategy that enables a specific group of people, poor rural women and men, to gain for themselves and for their children more of what they want and need. It has two aspects. First, it assumes the inability of rural poor to receive the gains from development, which is the main reason for widening the gap between rich and poor, and focus to develop a kind of mechanism in the form programs, packages and subsidies that suited to them, for example poverty alleviation programs and employment guarantee schemes. Second, build infrastructure to improve living condition and speed up economic growth. As a strategy, rural development incorporates following aspects: A. Goal setting and planning. B. Resource mobilization. C. Provision of services in integrated form. D. Good governance by introducing accountability. Whatever be the differences in defining the concept and meaning of rural development, there is widely shared view that it has following objectives. A. To improve the living standard of rural people. B. To reduce inequality amongst different sections of population. C. To eliminate exploitation of rural poor. D. To increase productivity in agriculture and allied sector. E. To reduce poverty. T. To create employment opportunity. J. To develop adequate infrastructure. 1.4 Nature of rural development. The rural development is multidimensional. It has at least three major aspects. First, growth in agriculture production and rural industries. Second, equitable distribution of assets. And third, well-being of rural people by providing basic facilities in rural areas by increasing employment opportunities and increase in per capita income. Rural development is an unending process. It always keeps scope for inclusion of new areas. The changes produced by the natural, demographic, socio-economic technology forces always give new dimension to rural development. Rural development as a discipline is a normative science which believes in the philosophy of what should be and what is required. It follows the path of ideology of policymakers and always engaged in search of new mode and alternatives for well-being of rural people. Rural development is instrumental for welfare state where the state is committed to provide all kind of basic facilities and amenities to their citizen. The rural development believes in the philosophy of grassroots development. It works as input-output relationship between different segments and institutions of society. The model for development varies from area to area and from time to times. It is related with the current need and the goal set by policymakers. For example, rural development in India was earlier identical to agriculture development to fulfill the need of food problem, then community development, then poverty alleviation, and now people's participation through Panchayati Raj. Rural development identifies the potential area for development on a regional basis and develops a mechanism for optimum utilization of resources. Micro-level projects and programs suitable to local area are launched, and these are essential part of policies formulated at national level. Rural food development is essentially related with the rural poor. The nature of rural development is basically diagnostic. It gives solution to the current problems and identifies needs of rural areas and follows planned approach. It acknowledges the inherent capacity of rural people which only need support. It not only analyzes the factors which are blocking equal opportunity for the poor, i.e. barriers to entry and discriminations etc., but also develop mechanism to eliminate it. The rural development tends to make rural community more progressive and self-reliant. The nature of rural development can be summarized as better utilization of all the resources for improving the productive capacity of rural areas, enabling the community to build a mechanism so that it could develop itself within a stipulated time and bring about improvement in the living of the rural poor. Check your progress. 1. Note: I. Give your answer in the space given below. 2. Check your answer with the preceding text. 1. Define rural development. 1.5 Basic issues of rural development. There are certain basic issues which needs proper understanding and special attention before formulating rural development programs. These are: 1. Poverty eradication. 2. Employment generation. 3. Production enhancement. 4. Expansion of education and health facilities. 5. Building up adequate infrastructure. 6. Building up force of trained staff. 7. Elimination of corruption. 1.5.1 Poverty eradication. Poverty is a worldwide problem. It is very severe in rural areas of developing and underdeveloped world. Poverty is result of slower growth rate of development along with the unequal distribution of gains amongst different segments of rural population. Poverty may be defined as a condition of life characterized by malnutrition, starvation, poor health, disease, illiteracy and roofless dwelling. Former World Bank President McNamara writes hundreds of millions of poor farmers' life is neither satisfying nor decent. Hunger and malnutrition haunt their families. Illiteracy forecloses their fortunes. Diseases and deaths visit them too often, stay too long and return too soon. Poverty is a curse against humanity. India has no doubt successfully reduced the share of rural poor in the population 56.4% in 1993 to 28.3% in 2004, but it is still very high. The percentage of poor no doubt fell down, but the number of poor reduced very slowly over the last 3 decades. For example, 2,61,290 lakhs in 1973 to 2,209.24 lakhs in 2004. 1.5.2 Employment generation. Growing rural unemployment is a great challenge to any government and policy makers. For example, unemployment among agricultural labor household has risen from 9.5% in 1993-94 to 12.3% in 2004-05 11th 5-year plan draft volume 2p.63. In order to provide gainful employment, it is necessary to maximize the employment potential in various agriculture activities like multiple cropping pattern, H01 horticulture, plantation animal husbandry, poultry farming, fisheries, dairy farming, and forestry programs, along with the utilization of the employment potential in non-agricultural activities like agro-based rural industry, rural artisan and self-employment. You are listening to this audiobook on Audio Learn IGNOU.
1.5.3 Production Enhancement. Enhancement of agricultural production is essential for overall development of rural area. The surplus production increases level of income of farmers, which not only improve their standard of living, but also exonerate the demand in other sector. LT is also required to ensure food security and to reduce pressure of growing population. The slow /11 or stagnation in agricultural production in recent years is a concern for the policy makers. Food security cannot be achieved by increasing the food grain production, but it also requires better public distribution system, marketing facilities, storage facilities and buffer stocks on one hand, and controlling rapidly growing population on the other hand. The growing population has increased the pressure on land in rural areas by reducing the average size of land holding, which is the major cause of low productivity, unemployment and poverty. It should be brought down to within limit. 1.5.4 Expansion of education and health facilities. Illiteracy, poor health condition and lack of medical facilities are the general feature of rural areas in most of the developing countries. It hinders the development of areas of the developing countries. 1.5.5 Building up adequate infrastructure. Adequate infrastructural facilities like road network, transport system, communication, electricity, marketing complex, and financial institutions like bank are essential for rural development. The road network and appropriate transport facility may bring multi-pronged socio-economic benefits by linking the scattered village with each other and with the nearly urban centers. It is capable of reducing the miseries of rural life. A study conducted by International Food Policy and Research Institute revealed that approximately 1,650 people have come over the poverty line by just investing Rs 1 crore on road. The institute found the similar trend in China also. The assured power supply is crucial not only for storage of products, lightening of houses and for minor irrigation where groundwater is used, but it also provides phenomenal push to modernization. Rural development as an instrument for a welfare state needs to ensure availability of these infrastructural facilities to all sections of society. 1.5.6 Building up force of trained staff. The rural development programs are highly diversified and complex. It calls for a concerted effort of the people engaged in development activities. The key to its success lies in building up a team of trusted, dedicated, motivated and trained people able to exercise and implement development programs efficiently. The skill development programs at various levels is required in this context. 1.5.7 Elimination of corruption. Corruption is worldwide phenomenon and major impediment to development process. The goal of rural development can only be achieved if there is significant improvement in the quality of governance. A good governance must be broadly defined to cover all aspects of the interface between individuals and businesses on the one hand and government on the other. It includes following dimensions: A. Legitimacy of the government; B. Transparency and accountability at all levels; C. Effective and efficient in delivering social and economic public services; D. Rule of law must be established. The 11th Plan proposal writes the plan accords priority to providing access to quality healthcare and education, particularly in rural area. For girls, minorities, SC and street, backward class and BPL families. It also emphasizes programs for employment under employment guarantee programs. Access to clean and good quality water, sanitation, housing and electricity are also critical. These services are delivered at local level, and this calls for both empowerment and accountability of the relevant authorities and effective monitoring of service delivery, particularly for lower income E-Group. 11th Plan Draft Volume IP.225. Therefore, is necessary to tackle the problem of corruption, which is the major impediment in rural development. 1.6. Scope of rural development. The scope of rural development is very vast. It is not confined to diversification of economic activities and growth in production leading to increase in income of rural people, but it encompasses a spectrum of activities necessary for self-sustenance and upliftment of socio-economic life of rural people, especially the poor. 1.6.1 Development of rural economy. Agriculture development. Agricultural development is the main area of rural development. Being major area to rural development, agriculture should not be continued at subsistence level. It has to be more profitable by increasing agricultural productions and continuous improvement in the use efficiency of all agricultural inputs, with emphasis on conservation of soil, water, energy and biological resources. It has following aspects. 1.6.1.1 Efforts for production enhancement. It imparts mechanism for popularization, demonstration and availability of irrigation facilities, fertilizers, high-yielding variety of seeds and pesticides for increase in productivity. Better irrigation facilities can be provided through building dams, tanks, ponds and canals. Use of machinery like pumps and sprinkler set and use of power for the irrigation through groundwater can improve agricultural products. Pesticides are very important for plant protection because the combination of weeds and pests causes great loss in production both during at the early stage of plant growth and at the time of crop maturity. JTS in disc-108 use may cause severe health hazard and environment, hence proper guidance about its use must be popularized. 1.6.1.2 Management of production. Management of agricultural product is very important because the risk of uncertainty and fluctuation in agricultural production is very high. Flood and drought-like natural hazard is very common feature related to agriculture production. Crop insurance schemes in this regard is necessary to minimize the risk effect. Storage and distribution systems for agricultural products and pricing policy suitable to farmers and consumer both is also required in this regard. 1.6.1.3 Agricultural research. Research and extension activities are very important for rural development. Research invent less than new techniques and technology to rural development, which ensures that gains are actually delivered to target growth. For example, agricultural research has made significant contribution in achieving green revolution in northwestern part of India in 60s. It is worth to be noted that the research efforts in agricultural science are by and large concerned with the technology upgradation in the light of input-output relationship. It needs to be extended to the development of low-cost technology suitable to small and marginal farmers. It also needs database development at national level. 1.6.1.4 Land reforms. Land reform directly affects the agriculture growth. The land reform measures include sealing and consolidation of land holding and grant of tenure right to actual tillers. The Consolidation of land holding make it more productive by uniting the small and scattered piece of land into single viable piece of land, whereas the ceiling of land limit the larger land holding, which are by and large unused. The distribution of this unused surplus land to landless labor may not only increase the production, but it also reduces inequality in asset distribution. 1.6.1.5 Development of allied sectors. Animal husbandry, dairying, fisheries, pig, goat and poultry fanning, forestry, agriculture and horticulture constitute the allied sectors. These sectors are highly labor-intensive, creating more employment and additional income and thus reduce pressure on lands. 1.6.1.6 Development of rural industries. Rural industries could be defined as one which is located in village, small in size and based on local resources. Cottage industry may also be included in this category. It is important for providing additional employment and income to rural people. Rural industrialization could be developed by providing technical know-how and financial support to local people. 1.6.2 Development of infrastructure. Infrastructure refers to those institutions and facilities which are fundamental to the development of an area. For rural development it includes 1. Development of road and public transport system to provide cheap transport for carrying goods and passengers. It should be well connected with urban centers and other villages. 2. The expansion of formal credit structure in the form of banks for financing agriculture and other rural activities. The increase in number of banks in rural areas is not enough. It is more important that banks should be easily accessible to all sections of rural population. It is necessary in this regard to ensure an increase in the total volume of institutional credit for agriculture and other activities of rural development and to ensure that larger share of credit is available to poor and weaker section of the rural society. 3. To ensure uninterrupted power supply and encourage to use non-conventional mode of energy like solar power, wind energy, biogas etc. 4. Building communication network in village for early and frequent flow of information. 1.6.3 Social and human development. The development of human resources contributes to sustained growth and productive employment. The dignity of people living in rural areas are highly disgraceful and needs attention, especially in following area. 1.6.3.1 Education system. Education is main vehicle of rural development. It is essential not only to develop and sustain appropriate technology but also to change the attitude of rural people towards social transformation and adoption of new technology. Spread of education among girl child is instrumental for women empowerment. Well-defined and well-structured education system is required to achieve the goal of universalization of elementary education, reducing the dropout rate and vocationalization of education along with 1.6.3.2 Expansion of health service. The situation of health services in rural areas of developing world present grim picture, high birth rate, high maternal and infant mortality rate, indicates the poor health condition of these countries. It is mainly due to the low level of healthcare infrastructure which includes hospital dispensary, qualified doctors and trained staff. For example, in India, according to a report, the number of sub-health centers in rural areas is very less. Only 12% of the health centers are within accepted norms. One doctor and one trained staff are available per 16 villages of India. 1.6.3.3 Development of rural settlement. Improvement in the general condition of rural settlement makes rural life more attractive and reduces rate of migration. There should be provision of roof for every household, safe drinking water, adequate sanitation facilities and proper drainage system in inhabited areas. These are basic needs for good and healthy living. Unfortunately, these are not adequately available in most of developing countries. Safe drinking water free from bacteria contamination and chemical contamination could only be provided by installation of hand pumps, construction of overhead tanks along with water treatment plants linked with water supply pipeline network. Proper drainage system is required not only to flow out liquid waste material, but also for safe disposal of it. It is also necessary for reducing the risk of disease. Awareness campaigns to use sanitary latrines should be launched, and financial support especially to the population below poverty line and weaker section of society should be given for the construction of sanitary latrines. It is not only meant for safe disposal of human excreta and environment hygiene but also necessary for providing and ensuring dignity low human beings, especially to women. 1.6.3.4 People's mobilization. It is observed that prevalence of ignorance, reluctance and sense of alienation toward development process among rural people restricts its growth, because they are not involved in development process. The rural people are neither incompetent nor inefficient, nor they lack enthusiasm. They only need training, motivation and support. This could better be achieved through people's participation in rural development process. Decentralization of power at village level is effective measure to encourage people participation. It is obvious fact that people develop sense of ownership, pride and commitment when they are given voice in decision making on issues that affect their life. It also creates atmosphere suitable to develop local leadership who is able not only to identify needed area for development but also be able to select alternative to be carried out and implement programs successfully. The another aspect of people's mobilization is to provide technical know-how, managerial skill, proper training and sufficient amount of financial aid to rural population and encourage them to develop self-help group. Check your progress too. Note: I. Give your answer in the space given below for each question. 2. Check your answer with '1 the preceding text. 1. What are the basic issues of rural development? 2. Describe the scope of rural development. 1.7 Let us sum up. Rural development is a distinctive field of study as well as a strategy emerged out of disenchantment of previous approaches of development before 70s, which only emphasized the growth of agriculture production or agrarian economy because it did not improve the living standard of rural population. It was realized that the economic growth has to be accompanied by distributive justice to reduce the widespread poverty and inequality in rural areas, which is the core subject of rural development. The analysis of it requires an interdisciplinary approach in which the broader social and political factors interacting with economic factors are taken into consideration. As we discussed in the foregoing, the rural development take into account the factors other than economic growth. These are education, health facilities, better infrastructural facilities in rural areas, activities to reduce poverty and generate employment. In order to achieve these objectives, an integrated and comprehensive approach is required. 1.8 Keywords. Development, the overall progress or growth which takes place in all the aspects of human life. Poverty, it is a condition of life characterized by malnutrition, starvation, poor health, illiteracy and low income. People mobilization, it referred to engage people in decision-making process and development process. Thank you, we will see you in the next video.